Welcome back to another episode of the Grassroots Tennis Podcast, a platform created to entertain, educate, and grow the game of tennis at all levels. My friends call me Ship, but this show isn't about me. We will be bringing you interviews with coaches, community leaders, and players, along with updates about tennis happening around the world. Tennis is a culture, and we are all writing tennis history together. Today, I am here with Manny Diaz, the head coach of the University of Georgia. Go Bulldogs. Coach, thank you for coming on the pod.
Oh, glad to be with you, Shep.
So, with these interviews, sometimes I start in different places, but obviously getting the opportunity to talk with someone who's not just coaching college tennis, but obviously coaching college tennis at the highest level, I have some kind of different questions. But first things first, I want to start with a question that I always ask. What do you feel like top, junior tennis players should really be focused on?
Whoa. Well, I think that's a little bit different for each player, right? I
Right.
think that, we have kids with tremendous hand-eye coordination. We have kids with great speed, and then we have kids that have different strengths and honestly different weaknesses. So I think the biggest thing, and one of my pet peeves is growing up, there was I think a bit more emphasis on good technique, good basic techniques in the early stages of player development, and sometimes even on with great junior players when they get to college. Even with them, I feel like there are some holes and there are some deficiencies. For example, I don't know, I'm just picking out of the blue here. Some very good players that come that are very lacking, say with a backhand slice. And that holds them back once they get to college. They have to improve. The further up you go, the echelon, up the pole,
Mm-hmm.
the more you are able to be exposed because you're playing bigger, stronger, better players, and they're going to find a way to get to your weakness if you have one. So it's a matter of shoring up weaknesses in the early stages, having good technique, knowing whether to change a grip on that backhand slice, make a little bit better modification there. Your your volley grips, making sure that you are you have a good foundation, whether it's on the serve, whether it's on the the ground strokes or the volleys, or having the awareness to recognize mid-court balls and and have good court positioning so that you can implement different game plans against different players. Being able to match your strengths, or even if it's not your strengths, how do you break down your opponent? You have to be able to be a versatile player, and you have to have good technique on all shots.
I love that answer. That's solid. I think that's solid advice that anybody could kind of listen to, and they could take and apply. If you've got a hole in your game, it's time to start figuring that out. And I'm a big advocate of, there's I always tell my juniors, there's going to come a day where you're going to play someone where you know what, their best is above your best, and it's not going to be about raising your level. It's going to be about how can you make them play not as well. What can you throw at them? What can you do differently? Can you take the ball out of their strike zone? Can you transition to the net well enough to make them uncomfortable? There's so many ways to do that. But
Yeah.
I love the way that you articulated that. Coach, obviously you guys have great facilities. It's a great coaching staff, a great program. Everybody knows UGA, and you guys are obviously doing a great job on social media. A lot of those videos you guys put out really show off the awesome crowds that you have. On a side note, I won't even make you speak to it. My personal opinion is that as of right now, nationals should be in Georgia every year. I would rather it be there with a huge crowd than at the USTA national campus. That's my personal opinion. If that's a little home court advantage for you guys, so be it. The crowd speaks for itself. Anyway, I'll move on. I won't put you on the record for that. I'm not going to put you on the spot, get you in trouble with anybody. My next question is going to be, obviously you've got to be doing something right there at Georgia. I want to talk a little bit about your practice sessions. Within your practice sessions, I know what some of my favorite drills are. You're in the team setting a lot, but then also have the ability to work with players, one on one when they might have something they need to improve, within your team. What would you say is when you're really trying to move the needle with your players, do you have a favorite team drill and then like a favorite individual drill that you could share?
Well, you know, there are books and books and thousands of drills. And to be
Right.
honest with you, now in my 41st year, I've forgotten more good drills than I can shake a stick at. Uh, you know, the truth of the matter is, and I tell that to my associate head coach, Jamie Hunt, a lot of times it's important for us to have a practice plan going to a practice, but
Hmm.
it's also important to write that practice plan. I tell them on sand, because I can tell it's more important for me to tell whether I am getting full attention and full cooperation, and everybody is. Hey, I can write down the best drill on that given day. It may or may not work. It may or may not grab their attention. It's going to be up to me to communicate what the purpose of the drill is, what the benefits are, how you can incorporate it into your game. Everybody, and we try to keep our practices as individualized as possible. But there are times when we start with just some repetition, some cross courts, some down the lines, some groove work, just hey, we try to make it interesting, and we try to compete even on the most basic drill we do. Who can hit the most cones, who can hit 20 balls in a particular area of the court. Just I try to get these guys to compete even in the simplest drills. But again, when it comes to drills, I think it's important for the coach to be able to ascertain as to where your pupils' attentions are,
Hmm.
where your focus is. I may have one or two guys that just don't think the drill really does that much for them, and it's important to stop. And you either communicate, and they get to buy in, or they don't. And I think for the most part, uh, identifying whether the drill is being productive is my responsibility, our coach's responsibility, and we need to make it work. I hate wasting a minute of our practice, and so everybody needs to be bought in. Everybody needs to be focused, and there are some times where I want to finish with some doubles drills, but by the 2 hour and 15-minute mark, maybe on that particular day, I have to be quick to find out whether it would be productive to even go into the next drill or not. So it could be the best drill in the world, but it is all going to be us evaluating whether towards the middle of practice or towards the end of practice, that drill is going to be really as productive as we thought it was going to be. And sometimes we just scratch a drill and we decide to compete, or we decide to go to another drill, or we decide to play sets. And it's important for us to be able to change direction at the drop of a hat. I think that's just as important as any drill, any drill that you might have drafted up for a good practice that day.
I love that. I think obviously great coaches have the ability to pivot when they need to pivot, and are good at kind of recognizing that. And I'm always an advocate of purposeful practice. The research backs that. When you step on that tennis court, mindless hitting is not doing anyone any good. And when you have your players and you can tell they're not focused, it's like, how can we redirect this? From what I've read, the research shows when you have purpose within your practice, it can be up to 15% more effective than that person who's, just mindlessly there and not, not just getting physically tired, but getting mentally tired. You have to actively engage. So yeah, once again, coach, I love that answer. Um, I feel like there's so many things that I could ask you. For recruits out there and or people looking to play college tennis, maybe not. I think it's hard. Yeah, there's so many levels in tennis, and that's one of my favorite things about it is there's kind of a level for everyone. There are good players, playing D2, playing D3, top of NAIA, top of JUCO, like, and people don't say that enough. But for those people that uh, they dream of, playing at a Division I school or a school like Georgia, what advice would you give to recruits on how can they either be building their resume appropriately, or what can they do to stand out, or how should they approach, kind of, being a good recruit? There are obviously things that make you stand out from the rest, and then there's obviously, like, I'm sure you've seen it. I don't know how many times in your career they just like, what was that recruit thinking? Why would they do that anyway? Could you give us maybe some clarity on some of that?
Yeah, I think that, kids, you know, at around your first year of 16, you're going to have a lot of coaches looking at you. They're going to be at sectional tournaments, regional tournaments. They're going to be at national events. If you're participating at a decent tournament, you're going to have coaches watching, whether that's Division I, II, III, JUCO, whatever it is. And I think that we're all allowed some mulligans when you're young. You're 12, you're 13, whatever. You know, there's a level of immaturity there, right? You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to blow your top maybe here and there. You're going to say something that you shouldn't have said on the court. You're going to maybe have some, you're going to stub your toe a little bit. But, once you get to your first year 16, then coaches are going to expect you to handle situations that are not in your favor, whether it's a bad call, whether it's by the umpire, or whether it's by your opponent, whether you lost a match you should have won and now you're in the back draw. How you handle that, whether you play, whether you don't, whether you claim an injury, every little decision that you start making once you get to the first year of 16s, they're going to have a little bit more repercussions. You have a responsibility as a young player to start showing, because to start showing better decision making. I mean, most coaches want to recruit character. They want to recruit talent, but character is super important. You're taking an individual sport and you're creating sort of a team setting. You're going to want guys in that locker room to be able to get along, to be able to motivate each other, to be able to hold each other accountable, to command respect for the game, for the program which you represent. That is a big responsibility for coaches to bring players that are going to be able to do those things. And for us, being able to represent the G in the right manner is at the top. So, that's, I think, not only what I look for, I think that's what most coaches are going to be looking for is, can this kid add to my locker room, to my clubhouse, to our culture? Is he going to be able to lead, our squad in his at least, second, third, fourth year? As you stay in the program, and you become a senior, you're expected to lead. And so that is being assessed as much as your talent. There's so many talented kids out there. That means very little if you don't apply yourself in the right manner. And so we're looking for kids that are going to be applying themselves and acting in the right way and showing toughness and grit and desire and the ability to handle adversity just as much as anything else.
That's another great answer. I have a couple questions for you. One that you kind of sparked while I was thinking about the recruits that I want. I've never asked someone on the pod before, so this is a new question. But obviously, with your ability, you're talking about your audibles, and then you're talking about recruits, and I'm thinking about people standing out. I feel like everybody sees the game a little bit differently. And obviously, you have an eye for the game. You're a tennis brain. For you personally, what tennis attribute sticks out the most? What's the most noticeable? If you walk up, you see two players playing, what stands out the most? Is it a you can only pick one thing, a big serve, the speed of the player, how hard they're hitting, big forehand, their backhand, their touch, their transitions. Like what stands out to you when you're watching players play?
Well, that's a good question. Um, and I don't know that there is just one answer, but to me, the one thing that strikes me probably the most, and you see certain players that play with tremendous ease, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see players laboring on one side and very flawless and natural on the other. Obviously, the one thing that strikes me the most, that draws me to certain players, is how the ball comes off their racket.
Mm-hmm.
In general terms, on both sides and on their serve. There's some players that the ball just moves through the air in a different way. Remember seeing Matthias Boker. I think must have been 1999. His second year of 18s. He came to us in 2000, and just walking into Kalamazoo, and I had never seen Matthias play before. We got onto Matthias Boker's, as a recruit very late. I don't think he was being looked after, as a prospect. Most people thought he was going to turn pro. But just walking into Kalamazoo and seeing him just 5, 6, 8 balls, it was just different. It just kind of stood out, and I went like, "That's the guy." And so we were lucky enough to get him, and he wins back-to-back NCAA championships, and was a tremendous representative for us. So just sometimes I see the ball coming off some of these kids' rackets, and it's a little bit different for me. And it's kind of an intangible. I don't know that you can put a finger on that, but that's something that I'm attracted to and that I notice. And I'm not sure if everybody notices. I don't know. But that's certainly something that stands out for me. And I'll be honest with you, when I saw John Isner serve, I went like, that's going to go far. And it certainly did.
Yeah, I would say John serve probably stood out quite a bit.
Yeah.
If I was in your shoes, whenever we saw Opelka coming up, I would have been calling John like, "Hey, can you call this young guy for me? See if we can steal him for at least a year. It looks like he's just going to go the pro route." But that's when once you've identified one big player, maybe it becomes a thing. I have an idea for college tennis. This is me spitballing. Obviously, there are some changes coming. Things change over time, and NCAA they're talking about moving the individual championships to the fall season. As far as I understand, that's in motion. Am I wrong there? That's what we're moving to, is the NCAA individuals. What I would love to see would be, I've always been like, why don't they do this? And now you might actually have time in your schedule to do it. I believe there's a natural break now between when your conference tournament is and when the NCAA tournament is. Maybe like 2 weeks if I'm crazy, but I would love to see you guys have an individual conference tournament. Every single team within your conference, doesn't matter what number they play in the lineup, you get to put 2 singles players out there, you get to put 2 doubles teams out there, and those, you get the chance. There are guys in certain lineups that are maybe playing like 4, all of a sudden getting the opportunity to play someone for 1, 2, or 3 that plays for another school that they're never getting to play. I think that the matchups would be cool, the storylines would be cool, the opportunity for growth would be cool, and you could incentivize that for the players in some way. But could you ever see something like that happening?
Well, as a matter of fact, I played my 4 years at Georgia in the early 70s, and our season-ending tournament, our conference tournament, was flighted In other words, all of the number ones in a draw, all of the number twos is in another, on and on and on. 6 singles draws and 3 doubles draws. And yeah, as a freshman, I won the number 6 singles SEC championship. So you crown a conference championship at each division, at each number, right? At each flight.
Right.
I don't know if that's what you're talking, but we used to do something similar to that, and yeah, that was fun. But I think I personally think the dual match format is more exciting.
Right.
But and from time to time we see a number 2 singles player, a number 3 singles player, Alex O'Brien. And honestly, during my playing days, Stanford had a boy at number 5 or 6, Chico Hagee, who won the NCAA singles championship, but he was playing 5 and 6 for Stanford at the time. He just got hot, and they were that deep. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that now we're going to have 2-year trial of moving the championships to, I think it's early December or so. That's going to be a good thing for us to evaluate. More importantly, I would like to go back to being able to have 2 weeks after the conference tournament before the NCAA championships. We used to, for so many years, have the ability to kind of just, reset. We got back to doing a mini training block. We got to doing a little bit more conditioning. The season has gotten, if anything, longer and longer and longer. We're starting to play in 1st of January, and we go through the 3rd week in April in the SEC, just constantly playing. And I think making sure that we have a 2-week period would be great. And if we do stay with a singles tournament in the fall, I think that we should try to ensure that and give the guys just sort of a little bit of a break, and then a training block there so that everybody can be fresh and ready to go. Be like a second fresh start.
Your idea is probably better than mine. Rest is a good thing. I could see that. And training for, the biggest tournament of the year, that training block out, I'm sure is valuable. Coach, is there anything you'd like to see change about the way junior tennis is currently structured in the United States?
I would not claim to be an expert. I don't get into all of the details as to how the juniors are, tournament schedules are done.
Okay.
So I would not feel comfortable probably suggesting anything, because I'm not that deep into all of this rankings, junior schedule, et cetera, et cetera.
What about at the college or professional level?
I think the ATP Accelerator, the program that they just came out, is fantastic. I'm finally excited about seeing not only the ATP, but the ITF and even the USTA, continuing to see now more and more value in our college system, and not only here in the States, but everybody around the world is now seeing it as a much more viable pathway. It's not the only pathway, but it's a darn good one. The amount of support from each program's support staff. I mean, you got nutritionists, you got sports medicine, you've got sports psychologists, you've got coaching, you've got travel. They take you to pro tournaments. It's such just an extensive support system, and that's why our players and coming out of college are so well prepared now.
I love that. I think it's nice. Usually someone has something they're really adamant about or they really want to change, but instead we get to kind of hear all the things that are the good things that are happening. That college to professional, that accelerator program, I'm super excited about. I love college tennis. I think college tennis is a great product. I think it's going to be a matter of time before we get it into the right, I think Tennis Channel should just take up and buy the rights to all the college tennis matches. I think when you get Tennis Channel, you should be able to follow your team. They should be red zoning it. I don't even need I don't need an announcer for every one of those. Just let me have access to all the matches so I can keep up with it. But
Yeah,
that's what I'd
we've
like to
got to.
see.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, golf was on the Golf Channel this late spring. 50 hours of coverage on Golf Channel. We got what, 2 hours on 2 days or one day, or we're struggling to get folks like the Tennis Channel and others to really see the value. And I think we're open to a dialogue. I mean, if we've got to tweak some things, then our ears should be wide open. But we've got to get on TV more than we are right now. Our Southeastern Conference is doing something about it. In our SEC championships, we now had the semis and the finals both on TV, and we just need to continue to grow that, because kids need to be able to watch college tennis on TV to really understand where they want to be. I mean, if we're not on TV, those kids are watching basketball, those kids
Yep.
are watching soccer, those kids are watching other sports, and that's where they're going to go. So in order for us to grow the sport and continue to really expand our base, I think we need to get on TV.
100%. There's nothing that I wouldn't argue with anything that you're saying. And obviously the open ears thing is a good thing. Obviously there's room to negotiate. Hopefully eventually someone from like Tennis Channel listens to this. The only other thing I would say is they should totally do a documentary or do a reality show following the people that qualified for that accelerator program. Show what it's like, that opportunity. Or
Yeah.
please get somebody that's a dynamic personality, like a Zeke Clark, who's trying to move from futures to Challies to moving them up. Like, start a vlog, make it a show. Breakpoint on Netflix for the casual fan was okay, but for the people who follow closely and are addicts, it was like, oh well, that's old news. It wasn't juicy enough for some people. It's like that. We already know how that tournament ends. And
Yeah.
it was too much about the matches and not enough about the stuff going on behind the scenes and off the court. And that's what people, I think, really want to see. They want to see tennis down to the nitty gritty. Coach, I got like 4 questions left. Some of them are pretty simple. I'm going to try to get them through them as quickly as can. Last chance, though. Do you have any other tennis hot takes? Anything you're just passionate about, a pet peeve or something, that you just, when you think about it, you get fired up?
Are you talking about in the game of tennis?
Anything. The other day, someone said they think that at all levels that you should play let court. There should be no more lets. Like, that was someone's hot take. They were really passionate about. Do you
Well,
have something?
I think that's becoming more and more the norm. I think people are being more open. It's the only sport really where you get to do, a mulligan.
Yeah.
But no, I'm just, I'm excited about each and every year, because it brings, even if it's one player that you bring in and you only lost one player from this year's team, if that be the case, it's still a different chapter. It's that book is going to get written in a different way. So that's what keeps me motivated and excited about the next year. It is just a completely different story that's about to be written, and and that's what keeps me up at night. And I'm just winding up this year, and we'll get ready this summer for next.
All right. So I've got a good question for you. I think you'll like this one. Here at the Grassroots Tennis Podcast, we're big believers in giving people their flowers. Who is someone that is underappreciated in the tennis community?
Most definitely, I think sports medicine people, the trainers, our trainers, they're first to get there. They're seeing kids in the middle of the night that are sick, taking them to the emergency room or a clinic. They're the first to get there, the last to leave. they're setting up for tomorrow's practice. When we're going home, they put in the hours, and they need to be recognized for that. They're just workhorses.
That you are the first person to say that, but I agree 100%. And in today's day and age, with the information that we have, that job just becomes more and more. It's an individualized thing. All the different athletes have different needs, and then especially our tennis athletes, and prehab, as you know, is just as important as that rehab. We want to prevent those injuries, and so they make that money and they earn that money for what they're doing, keeping athletes on the court. So obviously, that's a great shout out. Coach, I could pick your brain probably I could talk to a brick wall for an hour. So I'm sure I could pick your brain for hours on hours. I want to be respectful of your time. My last question for you is, who do you think needs to come on the Grassroots Tennis Podcast? Who has a tennis mind, a tennis brain, someone that has a story they really need to share, something. But keep in mind, whoever you say, you have to help us get this person on the podcast. You are definitely the person with the connections, not me. I'm just a small town guy. Who do you think needs to share and give back to the tennis world?
I think a great guest for you would be Coach Bill Tim, who retired from Vanderbilt a few years back. He knows more tennis than he's forgotten more tennis than I know, and he's a great friend, and he would be a fantastic guest.
I would love that. I've had some pretty good players on, and I haven't had the opportunity to edit and post all of them, but I've really enjoyed the coach interviews. I had a great interview with Diego Moyano and Mandy Brandy, and picking a coach's brain, especially one that's been in the game for a long time. There's always some good stories, and just always some really good nuggets of wisdom. Coach,
listen, before we go, you mentioned Andy Brandy. All right,
yes.
So Andy Brandy and I came out of this little place, San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
We grew up in the same club.
Were you also coached by Welby Van Horn at any point?
Mentored by the great Welby Van Horn.
Yes.
That's why I'm so strong on fundamentals at an early stage, because he was the best. And Andy, was a great coach at Florida. Finished at, went to the USTA, has impacted so many lives as a coach and a mentor. And anyway, but we both came from a 4-court little tennis club in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And, it's you talk about tennis is a very small world, right?
Yeah.
There's so many connections. But anyway, Andy Brandy's a great friend, and we've been friends since we were 14 years old. So that's great to hear.
I need to know really quick. Have you ever read the book The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle?
Yes, I have.
If it was not for that book, I would have never became the coach that I am. I would not have became a coach. That inspired me. I wanted to create my own talent hotbed, and I actually had an interview with one of the people on your team. And after the interview was over, Mr. Costa, him and I were talking off interview, and I said, thanks, I'm glad we could get this done. I got to run. I've got another interview right after this. And I told him it was Andy Brandy, and he goes, oh, he's like, you should definitely ask him about Welby Van Horn. And so I did. And then he turned around and I, that got some really great info out of Andy, and it made it fun. And so, Costa coming through with the great interview question. I try to do my research or whatever it might be, but I'm just so excited to talk to people. I want this to be a resource that's, someone who's falls in love with the game, that they can find it, even if they're from the middle of nowhere in a small town, and just they can learn and they can grow. And like you said, it's a small world. You hear stories and commonalities, and it's amazing how it's kind of like 7 steps from Kevin Bacon, but we're all less steps than that from Roger Federer probably. It's the tennis world is really connected. So
absolutely,
it's so cool. Coach, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and best of luck. And I'm going to keep, secretly on these interviews when it comes up, mentioning that I think that the NCAA tournament should definitely be hosted in Georgia. That's a personal hot take of mine. I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing down there, the culture, the crowds, and obviously you guys are doing a lot of great things. So thank you for coming
Appreciate
on.
it.
Yep.
Thank you, Dip.
Yeah.
Take
Yes.
care.
Take care.
All right. Take care.